The following is a presentation of the Black Hollywood Live Network, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. Hollywood Redefined. From Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies, this is Black Hollywood Live, Phenomenal Women, featuring in-depth interviews with today's most inspiring women. Black Hollywood Live, Hollywood Redefined.
You're listening to Black Hollywood Live.
And now, the host of Black Hollywood Live, Phenomenal Women.
Hello, 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 and welcome back. Happy Friday to you today. I'm your host, Ashida Onrae. We're here for another episode of Phenomenal Women. And with me today, I have an amazing couple, Shelley Morrison and her husband, Walter Dominguez. Now, you may remember Shelley from the hit show Will and Grace as the Rosario, the nanny on the show. And I am so thankful that they're with us today because they have so much to share. We're going to talk about their upcoming projects. We're going to talk about life, love, marriage, especially in the industry, and a whole lot more. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you.
So you have a career span of 50 plus years.
Yeah.
So let's take back for our viewers who may not be familiar with the show and the ones that are about your career. And let's start with the fact that you're from the Bronx. I love that.
Oh, from the tenements.
Yes.
Wonderful.
So how did you get started into acting?
Oh, my goodness. Well, my parents and I moved to Los Angeles in 1946. Mm-hmm. I was 9, 10. And my father bought this 4-unit building in Los Angeles where I still live. And he bought it so he could bring out the entire family. Mm-hmm. And how did I get started? I wanted to be a dancer. I wanted to be a journalist. I loved movies. My mother loved movies. My father loved the opera and stage. So even though we lived in the Bronx, my father would take me to the Metropolitan Opera on days where it was standing room only, and he would put me on his shoulders. My mother, she would save up money, and we would take the subway into Manhattan, and we'd go from one theater into another, and we'd see a vaudeville show and a movie, the Roxy, the Capitol Theater, and it was magic. It was all magic. The Second World War was going on. We had relatives in Europe. We were on rations, and I saw how people on the screen or people on the stage lifted the audience. We felt lifted. We could forget. We didn't have TV then. We had wonderful radio shows.
Right.
Ma Perkins and Argyle Sunday. Oh. As it progressed, I did become a dancer. And I had a very bad injury at the Shrine Auditorium because I had a nearsighted partner who didn't catch me during a leap, and I ended up in the orchestra pit. So now we have to figure out what we're going to do, because I wanted to be the best at whatever I did.
And you was. You became the best, absolutely.
Well, theater was my root.
Yeah.
The roots were theater, and learning everything I could about it. Everything. Everything. Direction, lighting, everything that had anything to do. I had to read every play. And I had the wonderful opportunity to do Shakespeare and Ibsen and Chekhov and Moliere. The only problem when I was starting, though, was that I still had my Bronx voice. Hey, you can't do Shakespeare talking like this. You know, it's a little unnerving. So I had a wonderful, wonderful voice teacher at City College, Alice Parashon, who worked with me with a tape recorder. Placement. But I developed my ear to different dialects and different tones so I could do all these different dialects. And then I did, I don't know how many plays at City College, and my classmates were Robert Vaughn and James Coburn. What a love. My parents adored him and used to feed him, and my father would slip him extra bucks. And And then I did summer stock and winter stock and bus and truck companies and national companies. And then I started doing live TV and then film TV and then features. I would never go into my dressing room. I wanted to see what everyone was doing. The editors taught me so much. When I had spare time, I would go and sit with the editors, and I learned so much about acting from that. I just wanted to be this giant sponge and just absorb everything, and the people that I got to work with. I mean, Edward G. Robinson and Gregory Peck and William Holden and Anthony Quinn and on and on and on and on, and wonderful directors, and it just
took off from there.
It took off from there.
Well, they say some of the great actors and actresses come from theater because you learn so much from theater, being that it's live and you get to feel the audience, you get to feel your character. So yeah, I'm enthralled with what you're saying. It's just beautiful because I have a vision of what your world is like at that time where you were in theater working with such greats. That's
and
amazing.
It doesn't stop.
Yeah.
It doesn't stop because you keep learning. And now that I'm not acting anymore, for several reasons. One is that whatever material is being offered to me is not been there, done that.
Right.
And the other thing is I don't want to have to pluck or shave anymore.
Right.
You know.
You are so funny. I love it.
That's why I do comedy.
Right. So during this time, you know, you're acting, you're doing amazing things, and then you meet your husband. And in 1973, you guys met on set. And what was it like when you guys first met?
Well, I was working as an assistant director on this low-budget feature film. It was an indie. It was a horror film, and which has hence become a cult film. But at the time, it was just a low-budget film. So Shelley was coming in to meet with the director to see. She was coming in for one of the leads, and so I was just waiting for her to show up, and she walked in the door, and that was it.
That was it.
That was it. It was almost like a movie where the camera zooms in on her face and on her smile, and she had this wonderful, she still does, this great smile with the dimples and the radiance coming from it, and that was it. I could not stop thinking about her. I was ready to actually leave the production and move on to something else because the production team was a little not so professional.
They were nuts. They were crazy.
Yeah, they were kind of crazy.
Can we tell them what the name of the
first-timers.
company was? The producer and his brothers, they were attorneys, and the company was called Wank, Wank, and Wank.
They were nice guys.
They were nice, but they didn't know anything.
Well, it was the first time in the film business. It was a tax shelter for them. And anyway, I was about to leave the thing, and then Shelley came in, and that was it. No more thoughts of leaving the show.
Right.
And stuck with it, and very happy to. And I kept calling her. Well, let's see. How are make sure you're going to get up to location okay. Do you want me to drive you or
Right.
somebody else? Or, she says, no, I've got it all set up. One of the producers is going to take me up there. And, well, okay. If you need anything, and that's how it was. I was just always hovering. And so that's how we met. And we had 6 weeks up at Lake Arrowhead on a location up there.
Dead of winter.
Yeah, and so that gave us the opportunity to really be around each other quite a bit and the other people. And it was a great group, kind of a crazy, wacky group, but
Right.
it was really...
But he was going with someone else. He was going with someone else.
We shall not name anything.
Right,
Oh,
right.
no.
We'll just stay out of that.
Who
But
kept coming up to location, and
Yeah.
this is my
Well,
man,
look.
so hands off. And it's like, if you're going with someone, hands off. Also, I'm older than he is. I'm 11 years older. He was 25, I was 36.
Wow.
which is a bigger deal when
Yeah.
you're younger. But the older you get, it's like it doesn't
It evens
really,
out.
Yeah. She aged me, and I made her younger.
Is that the secret?
That's the secret. It all balances.
Now you guys are
out.
celebrating an anniversary.
Yeah.
This month,
Yeah, how long?
41 years.
41 years.
August 11th.
August 11th. 41 years. What is the secret to marriage, especially in Hollywood?
Well, for one thing, Shelley keeps me laughing. When things get really tough, and as it always does for people at different times. Life is not a bed of roses, as we all know. She'll always find a way to make me laugh, and that is a very important thing. Humor is very important because that's what heals us. That's what keeps us going. We can have a good laugh and we can see the humorous side of something. That's one thing. But also, she's just an intensely loving and loyal person, and I've never ever had doubts or questions, about her loyalty and her faithfulness, and she's true blue, and there isn't, you can't say that about a lot of people.
That's true.
The people I'm closest to, aside from Shelley, my best friends, are people who I know are loyal to me, and I'm to them. It's a great feeling to feel solid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also family.
Yes.
Family has always been important for the both of us. We have the same values. Politically, artistically, our humor is... we have gone through some very unusual, difficult times, like most people, involving deaths of close friends or family, having to take care of family, cancer scares, our house burned down.
Now I want to talk about those two things because you have a very compelling story about surviving. How do couples go through that together when you're going through something so hard as cancer? Because I know you said that she brings laughter, but I know that during that time it's very difficult. Is that the way that you worked through it as a couple together?
Most times, it was just after Will and Grace wrapped. After 8 years in 2006, that I was so exhausted. Walter's father, who I adored, had passed. My mother was gone. I mean, it was... And I lost my sense of humor. I totally lost my sense of humor, and I took to bed. I took to bed for a long time. And this dear, wonderful man just... he was working on the film, Weaving the Past at that time. It's interesting. We do need other people in our lives. I have a very close friend, Eloise. Eloise and I go back to 1957. She now lives in Oklahoma. She's recently widowed, but she wasn't a widow then. Tough, wonderful lady. And she could barely walk. She needed her hip done. She drove all the way out from Oklahoma to come and sit by my bed and said, "That's enough. That's enough, Shelley. Come on. That's enough. We're going to turn this around."
And it helped.
And sometimes you need that.
Yes.
You
need that kick in the butt.
Shelley realized, boy, somebody went all the way across country with a hip that hurt like heck for thousands of miles, and then the worst of it was dealing with LA freeway traffic. She was staying with a friend out in the valley, and we live over on the other side of the hills, and sometimes 2 or 3 hours to get back and forth. But she came every day, sat with Shelley, and when Eloise left, that was when Shelley started pulling herself back together and started getting up, and so
I talk to her every morning. Every single morning. I get up at 4, and about 5:45, because it's a 2-hour delay, I call Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and I talk to Eloise, and sometimes Eloise needs a lift. And we have all these touchstones, and it's also how you are with your other friends and your family.
So it's kind of like what you said. There's a quote you said, you just have to live and smell the roses.
Yes.
Live
in the moment.
In the moment.
In the moment.
Absolutely. It's the little things of life that really keep you going.
And the gifts.
Meeting somebody like yourself with a wonderful smile, warm and friendly, it lifts you up.
Yeah.
And, doing these interviews to promote our film has been a treasure because taking the journey of doing this is as rewarding as the end result. Because we have met some wonderful, wonderful people. who are very positive and they're creative, and it lifts you up.
Absolutely. And speaking of that, let's talk about that. I have some stills here, and then you can take us through the journey.
Sure.
So let's start with this first tell us about the film,
Yes.
what it is, and then we'll go into...
Sure. 13 years ago, I decided I was at like Shelley had reached a point in her life where she had a crossroads. I had one, and I decided I needed to do something to re-energize my life. I had just turned 50 a few years before, and I was looking for a new direction. And my grandfather, who was a remarkable man, an immigrant from Mexico who came to the United States, to California in 1904, had been such a great influence. And the thing that kept coming to me is I never saw him afraid, and he was always so cheerful and warm and friendly and outgoing. He was a Methodist minister, and I knew him as an older man, but it turned out he had this whole other part of his life as a young man that I found out about in the process of going on this journey into the past. He had already been dead decades before, but I decided I'm going to find out everything I can about him, and I had no idea how I was going to do it. So many people were already gone. Went to Mexico a number of times. On his deathbed, he made us promise to look for his family, who he had lost touch with when he was 5 years old and never saw again, never saw his mother after the age of 5. So that was another part of the mission. So anyway, I decided to document this, take a camera along and start filming interviews of the people I met, places I went to, and pretty soon I realized, and Shelley looked at me, she said, Walter, this should be a film. It's a remarkable journey you're on. So one thing led to another, and it kept expanding. And so we have made this film. It's taken 13 years to complete. It's called Weaving the Past, Journey of Discovery. And we use archival images, archival footage, current footage we shot, the interviews, and then reenactments. In this scene here, we're shooting one of the reenactments. I decided there were certain key moments in my grandfather's life as I began to piece together the story that needed to have some kind of dramatization, but I didn't want it to be hokey or kind of fakey and not convincing. I wanted it to be just enough to put people there, to make them feel like they were a part of his journey. And so we were very careful to make sure that everything was authentic. And so we were looking for a train that was authentic to that period because he and his group of friends who were revolutionaries had to flee Mexico in order to escape being executed, because they were trying to help the people of Mexico who at that time, very quickly, it was like there were 900 families that owned everything and 9 million people who had nothing and who were desperate.
Right.
And so they were trying to change the system. His friend, Proxitus Guerrero, the man in the center, young man in the center, was the son of the hacienda owner where my grandfather grew up.
Take a sip.
Sure.
Love is love. I love it. Go ahead.
So anyway, he was the educated one who really had everything to lose because he was trying to overturn a system that perpetuated this kind of enslavement of people. And he saw this grand hacienda as really being like a plantation where people were enslaved. So they had to flee. So we needed an authentic train car, and through a miracle, Shelley, you continue.
Okay. The beauty of Walter's work as a director, a writer, he's in the film, he narrates it, is that also his attention to detail. Mm-hmm. Detail. The costumes had to be just so. The train, the props, everything. And many of Walter's family, younger people, played, like Corey, second from the left there, played his grandfather. His great-grandfather.
And it was very important to me that our family be involved, not just professionals. We had professionals, but also family members, because I wanted them to have a visceral experience of what life was like for their ancestors 100 years ago. Wow. And by putting on the clothing, reenacting, going to these locations, they did. It's almost like the spirits of the ancestors came into them, and they did remarkably well. They did remarkably well. This train is located down in the desert in a place called Pioneer Town. And it turns out that this train had actually been played a role in the dictator that this whole story revolves around. They're trying to bring down Porfirio Diaz and his regime. And turned out that this train had actually hosted Porfirio, and they had these wild parties there. You know, it was a very corrupt time with you know, women and lots of liquor, and it was a special car that was built. And we found it just through an amazing set of circumstances. And so we shot the scene there of them leaving. And a couple of months later, a wildfire swept through the whole area that just devastated everything. And unfortunately, it burned up this historic.
Oh.
So we photographed it. We have it on film. And the owner of the place was just grateful that we had documented this. He had this train trucked in, and then with a giant crane lifted into place. I mean, it was a labor of love for him. Right. And to see his train burn up in this conflagration. And it would kind of parallel the Mexican Revolution, which was the most violent revolution in the history of the world that we know of.
And it's not only just a documentary, it's more of a hybrid, because there's a story that you can make people laugh, you can make them cry, you can make them feel.
Yeah.
And what's happened, which is so important to Walter and I, because we do have a connection. And it's important for people who are seeing the film, or everyone out there, to connect with one another again. Not be on your cell phone, not be on the computer. Connect.
That's true.
Just connect and feel. We're getting numbed by everything that's happening. So here is a story that no matter what your ethnic background is, I don't care what it is, you will connect with it. You will connect with it.
I love it. I think we have some more stills that we want to show, so you can tell us about.
Oh, Tata.
Yeah.
This was my grandfather, Emilio Hernandez, and this was a photograph taken when he was a young minister. He had just become a minister, and they always took these portraits. This was done downtown L.A. in an old portrait studio down there. And so this is a recurring theme in the film. These scenes where we have the characters framed with the candle flickering, so that we can, in a sense, commemorate them and kind of honor them, because I think it's very important that we all honor our ancestors.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you, Shelley, myself, the folks in the control booth, we're here only because of people behind us who existed into the mists of time, a lineage of people, and the things that they had to face.
Yes.
And the things they overcame in order to have a next generation of children and teach and raise them. I mean, when I really stop and think about that, I always get emotional, because, you know, wow, we're not here just by ourselves. We are here with a whole bunch of people behind us.
Absolutely.
And around us, and so we represent them. So, you know, I know things can get rough, but darn it, why don't we just sit up straight and persevere, because we had amazing people behind us, and here we are, they're current representatives on Earth. And so when I look at that photograph, that's what I do. I draw inspiration. And in the film, I'm hoping others will also be drawing inspiration from these moments where we have these images of the different characters.
We've had a number of screenings, and it's wonderful with the young people. The young people, the teenagers, they're in high school. And first of all, they say, we didn't know all about that history before. We're not taught that in school.
No, that's so important.
And then they tell us that we're going to go home and we're going to get a tape recorder or a camera and we're going to talk to the elders.
Yeah.
Yes, we're connecting. We're connecting. And the film is important to us mainly because, especially Walter, he did it. Yeah. He did it. darn, it's good.
Well, it's a story. It's a really compelling story. And what we do is we weave several things. My journey to uncover the past and learn about my meeting these various people through miraculous circumstances. And then we cut back into the past, and we parallel what he was going through. And we weave in, by doing this, we're bringing in historical events and historical people, but in a way that's engaging. It's not, it's entertaining. It's not dry and academic. And then we come back to the present and the progress I'm making. So it's kind of it's an adventure story.
Yeah.
And so it gets people caught up in it, and there's some wonderful moments where we're laughing because some of the elders make you laugh. They're so funny. They're so sharp. And then there's moments where they break your heart and make you cry. And so there's all these different emotions that you feel along the way. But it moves along.
We couldn't ask backers to support us in a film.
Well, we didn't know where it was headed.
We didn't know where it was headed.
Right.
So I would like to just now say thank you, NBC, thank you, Rosario, for helping us to fund this. Thank you.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I think we have 2 more pictures through this journey.
This is obviously me,
right.
a few years younger.
But what are you thinking at this moment? What is this? What is this picture capturing here?
This is up near a mountain village in the mountains where my grandfather's. It turns out I was looking for his birthplace, and there were no birth records. But finally, through a series of circumstances and people I meet, I find out that all of the people in his background came from this one village in the mountains of Leon, and outside of Leon, Mexico. It's in the central part. And so I'm out there, and I'm looking over this mountain valley, and I'm thinking about, you see how rugged it is? There's cactus, and there's all kinds of, then beyond that, there's canyons and mountains. My grandfather walked 35 kilometers as a 5-year-old child across this landscape to run away from home because of an abusive stepfather. And he finds himself at the door of a hacienda, and this is where his whole life takes a whole new turn. And so I'm sitting there thinking about all of that, and remarkable. How can a 5-year-old survive?
Yeah,
and this
something
kind of,
in their spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
It's beautiful there. It's so beautiful.
Now this premieres in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And
August 15th.
2 weeks exactly from today.
2 weeks from today, August 15th, at the Lemley Theaters in Pasadena. It'll be playing August 15th through the 21st. We have senior citizen discounts, student discounts. The August 17th, 4 p.m. screening.
That's a Sunday.
Sunday. Afterwards, we will be doing a Q&A. And dear Abel, who owns El Portal restaurant across the street, who is so adorable, he has invited whoever comes to that screening to the restaurant to get some tequila tastings done. And also he will have an all-girl mariachi band.
Oh, nice.
So that was
nice.
He's so dear. People have been...
People have been wonderful. They've
Yeah.
been generous every step of the way in this whole process, this whole journey. That generosity comes across in the film, and that's what I hope people will take away from and feel inspired and uplifted and have had a really good experience and something to think about, something to feel about, something to take home with them and, ruminate on for more than just an hour, something
Right.
that can stick with them.
And Walter had how many hours of film?
Hundreds.
And so that's where he came to Mama Shelley and said,
Occasionally, I'd get really stuck, and I'd say, I am really blocked here.
Yeah.
Where do we go next? And she's great at that. She's great at just sitting back and looking. This is the thread. This is the important part. This is what you need to leave in. This can be extras. And that was crucial. Took years to edit.
Yeah.
So.
I love it. Well, for more information, they can go to www.weavingthepast.com. And you can find more information there. And what playhouse is it playing again one more
the
time?
Lemley Playhouse.
The Lemley Playhouse in Pasadena.
In Pasadena.
And once again, it's weavingthepast.com for more information on this beautiful film. And I'm wishing you guys the best of luck with this.
Thank you.
I'm so
Thank
excited
you.
for you.
We have a Facebook page, too, Weaving
Oh.
the Past Journey of Discovery.
There it is for Facebook. You can like the page and follow and continue the journey even after.
At Twitter.
At Twitter.
Is also at Weaving the Past.
So Twitter as well.
Yeah.
So I want to go into briefly about you guys have a full house of you guys adopted children and just a little bit of personal.
They weren't children when we adopted them. They were already young adults. And Walter and I follow the Lakota Sioux traditions, the Native American traditions, and we've had some wonderful teachers through the years. And Bearhart, Marcellus Williams, we seem to attract younger people who need counsel or just by example.
Or they need like a kind of substitute parents because they've come from other parts of the country and, you know.
And their parents are still alive.
Oh, yeah.
And we're kind of like their spiritual parents here.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we have quite a few of them and quite a few spiritual grandchildren. And
so
Walter,
we've had ceremonies where we had actual adoption of our kids. So in our hearts and in their hearts, we are adopted, but it's not legally done through those courts, you know.
Right.
no. And we're there for them, and they're there for us, and it makes for a very full, rich life because we have numerous nieces and nephews. We have a very large family, grandkids, and the thing is that he doesn't remember all the time all his cousins' names, so I have to remember them, you know, and preferably in the order of birth. And
You are so funny.
She's a riot, let me tell you.
She is. I'm loving it. Even off camera, right before we went live, you had me cracking up. I love it.
well, that's good.
Yes.
Because then your stomach feels better. And you get blood to your brain. I can't be around someone who doesn't have a sense of humor. And I really try to be very patient with people who don't. And if the humor doesn't get through to them or whatever, I'll just sometimes say something that isn't very nice. And I'm working on that.
Shelley's been working on patience and tolerance of people who bore her, but
Right.
she's doing well.
People who, I call them the psychic vampires. People who waste your time, who drain you, who have, and I long for people who have something to say and want to have a conversation. And not talk about Ethan Allen furniture.
Right.
You know.
I love it. Shelley and Walter, thank you so much
welcome.
for being with me today. I really enjoy you two.
Thank you.
I do. And I love the example that you set for us coming up and the younger generation of what life is like in marriage and love and most importantly, laughter. Because that is everything.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for
And
having
I
us.
am your host, Ashida Onrae. Thank you so much for being with us on another episode of Phenomenal Women and Phenomenal Men, as we have here today. And I look forward to inspiring you next week.
From producers Maria Menounos, Dario Kristen, Tiana Hobson, Kevin Undergaro, and the entire BHL crew, we would like to thank you for supporting Black Hollywood Live, the first online broadcast network dedicated to African American entertainment. For questions and comments, contact us at info@blackhollywoodlive.com. Like us on Facebook, tweet us, or Instagram us at BHL Online. And I'm your BHL announcer, Scipio. Instagram me at Planet Scipio. Thank you for tuning in.
It goes by.
The views expressed here are those of the host only and do not necessarily reflect the views of BHL or its owners or principals.
Thanks for watching Black Hollywood Live on YouTube. For more in-depth interviews and news, subscribe to our channel here and be sure to share your opinion in the comment section below here. See you soon, everyone. Bye.